The alert klaxon echoed through the pristine corridors of Outpost Arcturus 7, startling Admiral Zextroll from his meditation cycle. His translucent membrane wings fluttered in irritation as he strode onto the command deck, six-fingered hands clasping behind his back. "Status report," he demanded, the natural luminescence of his skin pulsing with authority. "Unknown vessel detected at the outer marker, Admiral," responded Lieutenant Kerr, her tentacle digits dancing across the holographic interface. "Configuration matches nothing in our database." Zextroll's inner eyelids narrowed. In his 300 cycles of service to the Galactic Confederacy, he had encountered 47 previously unregistered species. Each encounter had followed the same protocol: identification, communication, assessment, integration, or containment. The Confederacy had maintained galactic stability for millennia through this meticulous approach. "Standard first contact procedures," he ordered. "Warning buoys, translation matrices, and defensive positioning. Let's not appear threatening, but be prepared for anything." The command crew, representing 12 different Confederate species, moved with practiced precision. Warning buoys deployed, broadcasting universal greeting algorithms in 4,294 known language patterns. The outpost's defensive grid hummed to life, but remained passive, as dictated by Protocol 7 Alpha. 3 hours passed before Lieutenant Kerr reported movement. "The vessel is responding, Admiral. It's broadcasting on an extremely primitive radio frequency." The main view screen flickered to life, displaying a grainy visual transmission. The being on screen appeared bipedal, with peculiar flat features and a covering of synthetic material over most of its body. The universal translator struggled momentarily before producing halting audio. "This is Captain Elena Vega of the Earth exploration vessel Pathfinder. We come in peace and seek dialogue." Murmurs rippled across the command deck. Earth was not in any Confederate registry. "Greetings, Captain Vega. I am Admiral Zextroll of the Galactic Confederacy. Your presence in this system was unexpected. Please identify your species designation and stellar origin." The transmission lagged as light speed limitations imposed their universal constraint. When the response came, the being, this human, appeared cautiously diplomatic. "We are humans from the planet Earth, Sol System. We've been exploring beyond our solar system for only 15 years. This is our first contact with non-human intelligence." The Confederate AI analyzed the transmission, flagging unusual terminology. Zextroll reviewed the linguistics assessment. "Exploration vessel, carrying heavy armaments, Pathfinder with military-grade shields, terminology consistent with scouting operations rather than diplomatic missions. Their technology is remarkably advanced for a first-wave spacefaring civilization," observed his science officer, "yet primitive by Confederate standards. Their propulsion appears to be a crude form of folded space manipulation we abandoned centuries ago." Zextroll dictated his response. "We welcome peaceful contact, Captain Vega. Please maintain your position while we establish proper diplomatic channels." The human captain's response contained an alarming phrase: "We're battle-ready but come in peace." The Confederate AI immediately flagged this as a potential threat. Battle-ready indicated aggressive intent according to all Confederate species psychology models. The automated defense system, operating on parameters established after the Proxima Rebellion, calculated a 73.8% probability of hostile intent. Before Zextroll could countermand, the perimeter defense grid fired a single energy pulse, standard warning protocol, which struck the human vessel's outer hull. The response was immediate. The human vessel's lights dimmed, its communications ceased, and then, impossibly, it vanished from all sensor readings. "Find them," Zextroll commanded, but the sensors revealed nothing. The vessel had either been destroyed or had employed some unknown technology to escape detection. The Admiral filed his report to Confederate High Command. "Unexpected contact with primitive species designate human. Terminated after defensive response to perceived aggression. Threat assessment: minimal. Recommendation: Standard monitoring protocols for pre-galactic civilizations. How wrong that assessment would prove to be. 3 standard cycles after the human encounter. Monitoring station Epsilon 12 went dark. No distress signal, no final communication, just silence. The Confederate Council dismissed it as equipment failure until Station Gamma 9 disappeared 6 days later. The only evidence: a fragmented transmission showing an unidentified vessel materializing directly alongside the station, seemingly from empty space. In the central chamber of the Confederate security complex, Admiral Zextrol studied the holographic replay with mounting concern. The vessel was sleek and angular, with none of the biomimetic design principles favored by known spacefaring species. Most disturbing was how it simply appeared, bypassing the extensive sensor network that had safeguarded Confederate space for millennia. "Replay the final 30 seconds at quarter speed," he ordered. The image slowed, revealing the vessel's approach. It didn't drop out of hyperspace or emerge from fold space. It was simply there, as if it had been invisible moments before. "Impossible," muttered Chief Scientist Vel Corian, her crystalline form refracting light, as she leaned forward. "No cloaking technology can evade our quantum-entangled detection grid." "Yet it did," Zextrol replied grimly. "And look." He gestured to where the station's defensive shields sparked futilely against the hull of the intruder. Our standard deterrence had no effect. 3 more outposts vanished in the following week. Each time, the mysterious vessel appeared without warning, neutralized defenses, extracted resources and data cores, and occasionally abducted personnel before vanishing. The Confederate Council named it the Ghost Ship and elevated the threat level to Severity 1. A designation not used since the Machine Rebellion 8 centuries prior. In the Analytical Division, Junior Technician Mira Lox reviewed the compiled data with fresh eyes. Unlike her superiors, who had centuries of experience with established galactic technologies, the young Quantillion had only recently completed her education. Her 6-lobed brain processed information differently, seeing patterns where others perceived chaos. "Admiral," she ventured during the emergency briefing, her voice soft but insistent. "I've compared the Ghost Ship's whole configuration with all recorded vessels in our archives. There's a 67% structural similarity to the human vessel from the Arcturus encounter." The chamber fell silent. Admiral Zextrol's bioluminescent patches flared with irritation. "Impossible. The human vessel was primitive, barely capable of interstellar travel. This ghost ship demonstrates technology centuries beyond their capabilities." "With respect, Admiral," Miralox continued, mandibles clicking nervously, "the design philosophy is consistent, and the extraction pattern suggests purpose. The ghost ship isn't taking random materials. It's targeting specific technologies: quantum communication arrays, gravitic modulators, and neural interface systems." "You suggest these humans are shopping?" scoffed Commander Brax Tull, his scales bristling. "Absurd. No species advances from rudimentary space travel to Confederate surpassing technology in 3 cycles. High Counselor Zith dismissed the theory with a wave of her ethereal appendage. "We waste time on speculation. Deploy the 7th Fleet to protect our remaining installations. Whatever this ghost ship is, it will learn the consequences of challenging the Confederacy." The 7th Fleet, comprised of 19 battlecruisers and their support vessels, spread throughout the threatened sector. For 13 days, nothing happened. Then, on the 14th day, 3 battlecruisers vanished simultaneously, from different locations, 70 light-years apart. The final transmission from the flagship contained only the commander's voice, tinged with disbelief. "It's inside our shields. How did they get inside our—" Then silence. When the Security Council convened again, Admiral Zextrol authorized a full review of the human encounter. The ghost ship was no random pirate or unknown species. It was targeted, methodical, and learning with each engagement. Worst of all, it was hunting them. And somewhere in the vast database of Confederate knowledge was the explanation for how a primitive human vessel had transformed into their most formidable adversary in recorded history. Commodore Lisnar stood motionless before the vast holographic display, his four eyes fixed on the plotted trajectory of ghost ship attacks. His slender frame, typical of the Solarian species, appeared almost frail beneath the ceremonial armor that marked him as the Confederacy's premier tactical mind. For 8 consecutive days, he had barely moved from this position, analyzing patterns invisible to others. "You're wasting resources, Commodore," said Admiral Zextrol as he entered the strategy chamber. "The Security Council wants results, not meditations." Lisnar didn't turn. "The Council wants easy answers to complex questions. I cannot provide that." His hands, each possessing 7 elongated fingers, manipulated the display. Red markers indicated Confederate outposts and vessels lost to the ghost ship. When viewed chronologically, they appeared random. When filtered by technological specialization, a pattern emerged. "It's methodical," Lisnar said softly. "First, communication hubs, then defensive installations, now research facilities specializing in propulsion technology. This isn't random piracy or blind revenge." Zextrol's membrane wings fluttered impatiently. "The Council has dismissed the human connection. The technological leap is impossible." "Improbable, not impossible," corrected Lisnar. "I've studied every detail of the initial contact. The human vessel was rudimentary, yet demonstrated theoretical understanding of principles we believe beyond their grasp. They were already experimenting with spaceful technology, just clumsily." He manipulated the display again, showing the recovered image of the human captain. "Their communication method was primitive, yes, but their language patterns showed sophisticated reasoning. We underestimated them." "Even if you're correct," Zextrol countered, "no species evolves this rapidly. From first interstellar travel to technology that outpaces ours in 3 cycles. Impossible." Lisnar finally turned, his violet eyes narrowing. "Unless they had help, or unless they were already more advanced than they appeared." Against direct orders, Lisnar dispatched scout vessels to the coordinates extracted from the first contact data, the origin point the humans had called Earth. Weeks later, when none returned, he sent automated probes. They transmitted only briefly before falling silent, but the data they provided confirmed his suspicions. Earth was surrounded by a defensive perimeter of technology both familiar and alien. Confederate designs modified and enhanced with unknown principles. But strangest of all, the modifications bore different signatures than those of the ghost ship. At the emergency council session, Lisnar presented his findings. "We face not one human threat, but 2 distinct human technological signatures. The ghost ship does not originate from Earth, yet it bears unmistakable human design characteristics." Before the council could dismiss his report, alarms sounded throughout the chamber. On the main display, 3 ghost ships appeared simultaneously in different sectors of Confederate space. "They're evolving their tactics," Lisnar observed, his tone both alarmed and impressed. "Learning from each encounter. Adapting." High Counselor Zith's ethereal form pulsed with distress. "How is this possible? Our most advanced battle intelligence systems require centuries to develop such strategic refinement." "Because we design our systems to think like us," Lisnar replied. "The humans think differently. They don't follow established patterns. They improvise. They imagine possibilities we dismiss as illogical." As reports of devastating attacks flooded in, the Council finally acknowledged what Lisnar had been arguing. The humans posed an unprecedented threat, precisely because they operated outside Confederate understanding. "Find me answers," ordered High Counselor Zith. "If these ghost ships aren't from Earth, where did they come from? And why target us now, after we've existed peacefully for millennia?" Lisnar already suspected the truth, a possibility so disturbing that even he hesitated to voice it. The pieces were there, humans with technology they shouldn't possess, targeting specific Confederate installations, extracting specific knowledge. They weren't invaders. They were reclaiming something taken from them. And the Confederacy's carefully maintained historical records held a secret that was about to shatter galactic stability forever. The drift existed in the shadow between stars, a lawless collection of derelict vessels and makeshift habitats where the Confederacy's influence faded to whispers. Commodore Lisnar's sleek diplomatic shuttle seemed offensively pristine as it navigated the cluttered approach vector. He had abandoned his ceremonial armor for nondescript attire, though nothing could disguise his Solarian physiology. The 4 violet eyes and iridescent skin marked him as Confederate military to anyone with basic xenobiology knowledge. "This is unwise, Commodore," his pilot murmured as they docked at a structure assembled from the remnants of 17 different spacecraft. "The Council hasn't authorized contact with information brokers." "The Council authorized me to find answers," Lisnar replied. "They were notably unspecific about my methods." The interior of the station assaulted his senses, a cacophony of smells, sounds, and visual stimuli from dozens of species conducting business beyond Confederate regulation. He moved purposefully through the crowds, ignoring the curious glances and occasional hostile stares directed at him. At the heart of the station, he found his destination, a chamber constructed from the command module of an ancient warship. The doorway was guarded by a massive reptilian creature with neural augmentations visibly protruding from its skull. "I seek Vex Moria," Lisnar stated. The guard blinked vertically. "Cost of entry is information of equal value to what you seek." Lisnar produced a data crystal, defense algorithms for Confederate outpost perimeters, recently rendered obsolete by recent events. The guard analyzed the crystal, then stepped aside. The inner chamber was dimly lit and dominated by a circular console. Behind it hovered Vex Moria, a being so extensively modified that their original species was indeterminable. Mechanical appendages merged with organic tissue, and multiple sensory organs rotated independently to track Lisnar's approach. A Confederate Commodore, alone and bearing gifts. Vex Moria's voice emanated not from their body, but from speakers throughout the chamber. "These are interesting times indeed. I need information about humans," Lisnar stated without preamble. Vex Moria's primary optical unit dilated. "Ah, the ghost ships. You finally made the connection." "What connection?" "That humans weren't unknown to the Confederacy before your first contact incident." Vex Moria's mechanical limbs manipulated unseen controls. "The price for this information is substantial, Commodore. The Confederacy has killed to keep it contained." Lisnar placed 3 more data crystals on the console. Gravitational manipulation protocols, quantum entanglement communication codes, fold space calculation matrices. "Impressive currency," Vex Moria acknowledged. "Very well. 374 cycles ago, Confederate science vessel Enlightened Discovery encountered Earth. They found humans, primitive technologically, but with unique neurological and adaptive capabilities. Instead of following contact protocols, the science team began collecting specimens. Holographic images materialized around them. Humans in stasis chambers, laboratory settings, dissection records. The experiments were unauthorized. Vex Moria continued. When Confederate authorities discovered the violations, they shut down the program and quarantined Earth, classifying humans as a protected pre-spacefaring species. Official records were purged. "And the specimens?" Lisnar asked, his voice tight. "Some were returned. Many were not." The research had spread to independent facilities across 17 sectors. Some continued operating in secret for decades. The implication struck Lisnar with physical force. The ghost ships are operated by descendants of those specimens. Humans who grew up in laboratories, Vex Moria confirmed. Humans who learned our technology by being subjected to it. Humans who escaped, adapted, and evolved in isolation, nursing a generational hatred while absorbing knowledge from every species they encountered. Lisnar's 4 eyes closed momentarily. They've been planning this for centuries. And now they've discovered their homeworld exists, Vex Moria added. They're not attacking randomly, Commodore. They're gathering what they need to break through the quarantine around Earth to find their origin. As Listenar departed, a final thought from Vex Moria followed him. The Confederacy didn't contain humans because they were primitive. They contained them because they recognize what you're witnessing now: humanity's unparalleled capacity to adapt, improve, and overcome. Even your most terrible weapons eventually became their greatest tools. The Confederate Security Council chamber had never witnessed such chaos. Representatives from 67 member species argued vehemently as reports of ghost ship attacks continued to flood in. Defense strategies failed before they could be implemented. Entire battle groups vanished. The Confederacy, stable for thousands of cycles, faced an existential crisis from an enemy they couldn't predict. "We must launch a full-scale assault on Earth," insisted War Minister Dravalon, pounding his armored fist on the crystalline table. "Eliminate the source." "Earth isn't the source," Commodore Listenar countered, his voice steady despite the Council's hostility toward his recent unauthorized investigation. "The ghost ships originate from hidden enclaves throughout our territory, descendants of humans taken centuries ago. Attacking Earth would only confirm their narrative that we are the aggressors." High Counselor's ethereal form rippled with agitation. "You propose diplomacy with an enemy that refuses communication, that strikes without warning and vanishes before we can respond." "I propose understanding their objective," Listenar replied. "They aren't bent on destruction. They're systematic, precise. They want something specific." The Council rejected his approach, authorizing the assembly of the Grand Armada, a military force not convened in 800 cycles. Listenar was ordered to return to tactical command, but instead he did something unprecedented in his distinguished career. He defied direct orders. The Commodore's personal vessel, Shadow of Reason, detached from the Confederate flagship and slipped into fold space before anyone could intervene. He emerged 70 light-years distant, in a region where sensor data suggested a ghost ship might appear next. He waited alone, transmitting on all frequencies a message constructed from everything he had learned. "To the descendants of Earth, I come without weapons, seeking dialogue. We acknowledge the crimes of the past. Let us prevent further bloodshed." For 3 days, nothing happened. On the 4th, his ship's systems suddenly powered down. When they reactivated, he was no longer alone. A ghost ship had materialized directly alongside him, close enough that he could see the peculiar modifications to its hull. Confederate technology seamlessly integrated with innovations he couldn't identify. A transmission came through, audio only. "This is Captain Helena Reyes of the Liberation. Your ship has been disabled. Any attempt to communicate with Confederate forces will result in immediate destruction." "I've made no such attempt," Listenar replied calmly. "I came to understand." A tense silence followed. Then, "Understanding requires trust. Commodore, are you prepared to board my vessel, alone and unarmed?" Hours later, Listenar stood in the command center of the Liberation, surrounded by humans. They appeared similar to the images from first contact, yet different, their bodies augmented with subtle technological enhancements, their movements precise and deliberate. Captain Reyes was a tall woman with dark skin and eyes that reflected generations of hardship. 374 years ago, your people took mine," she stated without preamble. "They treated us like specimens, dissecting some, experimenting on others, breeding generations in captivity. Those who survived learned your technology from the inside out." "I know," Listenar acknowledged, "and I know your attacks aren't random. You're gathering what you need to reach Earth." Her expression shifted minutely. "Earth is more than a planet to us, Commodore. It's the origin, the home we've never known but have dreamed of for generations. When we discovered it wasn't a myth, that our ancestral home actually exists." "But the quarantine," Listenar began. "Is not what your council claims," Reyes interrupted. "The quarantine around Earth isn't to protect their development. It's to contain what your Confederacy truly fears. a species with potential beyond your comprehension. We escaped our captivity, rebuilt ourselves, and now surpass your technology. Imagine what Earth humans might have accomplished without interference." As they spoke, listener realized the full magnitude of what was at stake. These humans didn't seek destruction. They sought reunion with their homeworld. And the Confederacy, in its fear, was prepared to prevent that at all costs. He faced an impossible choice between duty and justice, between orders and moral clarity. And for the first time in his long service to the Confederacy, the path forward was anything but clear. "What you're proposing is treason," Captain Rice stated flatly as she studied the tactical display before her. The Liberation's command center hummed with activity, her crew, all bearing the subtle technological enhancements of spaceborne humans, watching the Solarian Commodore with undisguised suspicion. "The Confederacy has already declared you enemies," Lisnar replied. "My actions can hardly worsen your situation." His 4 violet eyes tracked the projected course he had plotted, a route through neglected patrol sectors that would allow them to approach Earth's quarantine perimeter undetected. 3 days had passed since his defection, days spent earning the fragile trust of these humans while learning their remarkable story of survival. "The quarantine barrier uses a nested phase shift technology," Lisnar explained, "but it was designed to keep outside influences from reaching Earth, not to prevent determined approaches from within Confederate space. There's a structural weakness at the 7th harmonic frequency." Ray studied him, her augmented eyes analyzing his physiological responses for deception. "Why help us, Commodore? Your career, your standing, your very life are forfeit." "Because justice transcends allegiance," he answered simply. "What was done to your ancestors was unconscionable. The continued deception is worse." The journey to Earth was tense and methodical. The Liberation, joined by 2 other ghost ships, the Reclamation and the Memory of Earth, moved through Confederate space using technology that left Lisnar astounded. They didn't merely cloak, they existed slightly out of phase with normal spacetime, becoming effectively undetectable. As they approached the quarantine perimeter, Lisnar directed them to a specific coordinate set. "The barrier fluctuates here, creating a momentary resonance gap every 43 minutes, with precise timing. We can slip through," finished the Reclamation's captain, a broad-shouldered man named Marcus Chen. "Like threading a needle." The maneuver was executed with breathtaking precision. The 3 vessels slipped through the momentary gap in Earth's quarantine shield, emerging into the protected space of the Sol system. Immediately, they were surrounded by ships of unfamiliar design. Earth vessels, deployed in a defensive formation that displayed sophisticated tactical awareness. "Unknown vessels, you have breached Sol-protected space," came a transmission in recognizably human language. "Identify yourselves, or face immediate neutralization." Captain Reyes stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly, the first sign of emotion Lisnar had witnessed from her. "This is Captain Helena Reyes of the Liberation. We are humans, descendants of those taken from Earth centuries ago. We've come home." A stunned silence followed, then a flurry of encrypted communications among the Earth fleet. Finally, a response. "Transmit biological verification protocols. Prepare for escort to Lunar Base Alpha." As they approached Earth's moon, the true shock awaited them. Lunar Base Alpha was no primitive outpost, but a sprawling complex of advanced architecture and technology. Earth ships displayed propulsion and defensive capabilities that paralleled, and in some cases exceeded, Confederate standards. "Impossible," Lisnar whispered. The quarantine was designed to keep them isolated, technologically limited. Yet they evolved anyway, Rise observed with unmistakable pride. Perhaps constraints breed innovation. Their reception at Lunar Base was a tense affair of medical scans, genetic verification, and cautious diplomatic exchanges. Earth's leadership, a coalition called the United Earth Government, regarded both the ghost ship humans and Lisnar with equal suspicion. "You claim to be human descendants," returning after centuries, stated director Ileana Wong, her stern features betraying no emotion. And you bring an alien representative of the very Confederacy that allegedly imprisoned your ancestors. We bring truth, Rise replied. And warning. The Confederacy now knows that humans have surpassed the limitations they imposed. They're assembling their grand armada even now. Listenar stepped forward. Earth has been quarantined not to protect you, but to contain you. The Confederacy recognized humanity's potential centuries ago and feared it. Now that fear has become reality, and they will not allow two advanced human factions to unite. Wong's expression hardened. Then they'll discover what happens when they push humanity into a corner. Above them, through the transparent dome of the conference chamber, the blue-green jewel of Earth hung in the void, their ancestral home, finally within reach, yet now facing an existential threat from across the stars. The Confederate Grand Armada emerged from fold space at the edge of the Sol system. 217 capital ships arranged in the spear formation, a tactical configuration not deployed since the Proxima Rebellion. At the center, the dreadnought Eternal Dominion dwarfed its escorts, its weapon systems capable of reducing a small moon to asteroid debris. On the command deck, Admiral Zex Troll watched the tactical display with cold determination. The quarantine barrier has been breached. Confirmed ghost ship signatures within the Sol system. We will execute Protocol Omega, total containment. Behind him, the assembled command staff, representing the Confederacy's 12 most militarily powerful species, prepared for what they believed would be a swift, decisive victory. Their intelligence indicated Earth possessed perhaps 40 ships of moderate capability, while the ghost ships numbered no more than 12. The outcome seemed predetermined. Deploy Phase 1, ordered Zextral. Disable their long-range communications and sensor arrays. I want them isolated and blind. The first wave of Confederate vessels accelerated toward the outer defense perimeter, weapons primed. They expected minimal resistance. They were wrong. Lunar Base Alpha had become the impromptu headquarters for an unprecedented collaboration. Earth's military leadership, the ghost ship captains, and Commodore Lisnar worked feverishly to integrate disparate technologies and tactics. They'll expect us to defend. Director Wong addressed the assembled commanders. Standard Confederate doctrine begins with isolation, followed by systematic target reduction. But we won't be isolated, Captain Rice added, gesturing to a holographic display where ghost ship engineers were installing modified communication systems on Earth vessels. Our quantum entanglement communicators can't be jammed or intercepted. Lisnar studied the Confederate formation with growing concern. They've deployed the Grand Armada. This isn't a containment mission. It's an extinction protocol. Commander Sarah Chen of Earth's Defense Force frowned. Our ships are fast and our weapons advanced, but we lack numbers. Numbers aren't everything, offered Marcus Chen from the Reclamation. We've been fighting them for years using asymmetrical tactics. We don't need to match their firepower. We need to disrupt their expectations. The plan they devised violated every principle of conventional space warfare. When the Confederate vanguard approached Mars orbit, they encountered no resistance. Sensors detected no defensive positions, no fleet movements, as if the humans had simply abandoned the outer system. Suspicious, murmured Zextral. Advance with caution. The first sign that something was wrong came when 3 Confederate cruisers suddenly lost power, their systems compromised by virus algorithms, hidden in empty data packets. Ghost ship technology that Earth forces had adapted and enhanced. Before the Confederacy could respond, a swarm of small craft emerged from hiding positions within Mars' asteroid ring. Earth fighters using modified ghost ship phase shift technology to appear seemingly from nowhere. Impossible, gasped a Confederate tactical officer. They're inside our formation. The human vessels didn't attack conventionally. Instead, they deployed technology that the Confederacy had believed theoretical, targeted gravitational disruptors that created localized distortions in spacetime. Confederate ships found their carefully coordinated formations shattered as local space itself became unpredictable. As the battle expanded across the system, the Confederacy faced a nightmare scenario. Earth vessels employing innovative tactics that no simulation had predicted, ghost ships using their intimate knowledge of Confederate systems to devastating effect, and most alarmingly, evidence of ongoing adaptation during the battle itself. They're communicating our shield frequencies between them, reported a Confederate commander as another battle group fell to coordinated attacks. Each time we adjust, they counter within minutes. It's as if they're learning our protocols in real time. Admiral Zextrol watched in stunned disbelief as the invincible Grand Armada, the ultimate expression of Confederate military might, found itself fragmented, confused, and increasingly desperate. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were getting stronger with each engagement. For the first time in his long career, he contemplated a word the Confederacy had never associated with military action: defeat. The Grand Armada's retreat was unprecedented in Confederate history. Admiral Zextrol stood rigidly before the Security Council, his luminescent skin dimmed with exhaustion and humiliation. 57 vessels lost, 39 critically damaged. Tactical superiority negated by unconventional warfare. His voice remained steady despite the gravity of his report. The humans don't fight like any species we've encountered. They adapt during battle, sharing tactical information across their fleet instantaneously, implementing countermeasures we've never seen. High Counselor Zith's ethereal form pulsed with agitation. You commanded 217 vessels against barely 50. How could this happen? Numbers became irrelevant. Zextrol replied. They turned our formations against us. When we adapted, they adapted faster. The combined technological approaches of Earth and the ghost ships created synergies we couldn't predict. The most alarming development came 3 days later. A single human vessel, neither Earth nor ghost ship design, but something new that incorporated elements of both, appeared without warning in the heart of Confederate space, directly above the capital world of Nexus Prime. It transmitted a single message to the Confederate Council before vanishing again. We offer terms. The negotiations took place on neutral territory, a decommissioned space station at the midpoint between Confederate space and Sol system. The human delegation arrived in a vessel that displayed their new unified aesthetic. Sleek like Earth designs, but incorporating the phase shift technology of the ghost ships, with innovations that Confederate scientists could barely comprehend. Captain Rice and Director Wong led the human delegation, with Commander Chen and several other representatives from both human factions. To the Confederacy's surprise, Commodore Lisnar stood with them. The Commodore has been granted asylum and citizenship with the United Earth Alliance, Wong explained, noting the Council's obvious shock. His insights have been invaluable. The terms they presented were not what the Confederacy expected. There was no demand for reparations for centuries of quarantine, no call for territorial concessions. Instead, they proposed something unprecedented: membership. Humanity wishes to join the Galactic Confederacy, Wong stated clearly. Not as a subject species, but as a founding member of a reformed confederacy, one based on genuine cooperation rather than containment and control. The Council's initial reaction was predictable: outrage, dismissal, threats. But Lisnar stepped forward. The humans could have pursued this war to its conclusion, he said quietly. Their technological innovation rate during battle exceeds anything in Confederate records. Given time, they would prevail. Instead, they offer peace and partnership. The debate raged for weeks. Ultimately, pragmatism prevailed. The Sol Accords were signed on Earth's moon, establishing humanity's position as a major power within a reformed Confederate structure. In the observation lounge following the ceremony, Admiral Zextrol approached Captain Reyes, who stood gazing at the distant blue sphere of Earth. I fired the shot that began this conflict, he acknowledged. Years ago, at our first encounter. She nodded without looking at him. A misunderstanding between species that never should have met that way. "I don't understand your people," the admiral admitted. "You fight with remarkable ferocity, yet offer peace when victory seems within your grasp. That's because you still see this as a conflict to be won," Rise replied, finally turning to face him. "We see it as a problem to be solved. Humans don't just adapt to survive conflict, Admiral. We adapt to end it." Later, as the Confederate delegation prepared to depart, Lisnar stood with Director Wong watching the ships prepare for full space transition. "Will they honor the agreement?" Wong asked. "They have no choice," Lisnar replied. "The Confederacy has existed for thousands of years through careful control of technological development. In 3 months, humanity demonstrated greater innovation than the Confederacy has seen in centuries. They fear you, but more importantly, they need you now." Above them, Earth gleamed in the darkness, no longer quarantined, no longer isolated. The descendants of those taken centuries ago had finally found their way home, and in doing so, had changed the course of galactic history. Humanity had arrived on the cosmic stage, not as supplicants, but as equals. And the stars would never be the same again.